Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We are here on High Vibing It, and we have a super fun guest this week. We're very excited to introduce you to Miss Aislinn Walton. She is also known as the Abundance Witch. She is a business and success coach. And today we're going to dive into a very spicy topic of orgasmic manifestation and essentially using our body and our bodily sensations to help us create new things into being. So thanks, Aislinn, for being here.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you so much for introducing me, for welcoming me. Thank you, Lindsay. I'm so excited to be here and dive into this spicy topic.
I love it.
I know Kelsey knows more than I do about this. Like, I just know the basics, right? Like, have an orgasm, manifest what you want. Now,
well, you make it sound so boring when you say it.
Well,
like that.
No, I just mean like it's very it feels very straightforward. Now, how would you, I guess, define orgasmic manifestation, or how do you explain it to people who might be very, very new to this idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So I take a really broad approach of what orgasmic manifestation actually is. I think, the orgasmic manifestation aspect of like just climaxing and wishing things into your reality, it's like kind of it's a tiny little aspect of it, but there's a bigger perspective around just our pleasure, our bliss, our life force energy of just being a woman with the capacity to create life, right? Like the capacity to channel our sexual energy into creating and co-creating a life that really turns us on, and not just in like a sexual way, but helps us to feel like fully activated women, where we're in our purpose, we're in our passion, we're playing there, we're having, we're really just in alignment there. So there's a lot of, kind of like the iceberg analogy, right? There's the tip, and then there's so much else underneath the surface that we can absolutely dive into today.
I love it. My first question that comes to mind is, do you coach dudes to do this, or is it like mainly a woman thing?
That's a really good question. So since I am in a female body and I identify with being like a feminine majority being, this work is absolutely accessible to all gender. It's non-binary. It's everybody who has a breast, everyone who has a body.
Everyone who has genitals can do this.
Yeah,
okay.
No matter what they look like, you are welcome here. Yes. So I don't really teach it from the male lens or the masculine lens, because that's not my embodied experience. But there are just from the feminine perspective, I think that women have been born into the society with a lot more expectations around their sexuality. Not to say that the masculine or men don't have that, but I find that women have a harder time accessing pleasure and giving themselves permission to actually like let that be okay. So yes, men can absolutely do that. I don't really teach that. I love teaching women and feminine essence beings doing, this particular work, just because that's like where I come from.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned too that as women, we do have, there's a lot of stigma around celebrating your body and being in and honoring what it is to be female in a sexual sense, and like really enjoying yourself. And there's a lot of like, I don't know what the word is. There's a lot of like, I don't know, judgment from the surface of like what it means if you do that, or if you're into that, or if you celebrate being a woman. So I love that you're taking this approach and not only demystifying and destigmatizing it, but you're showing all the amazing benefits of this, because I feel like it's the closest we come to actually remembering our connection to the universe in those tiny moments, right? And so why not want more of that? Why not?
Right? Exactly. Like that's exactly the point of like returning to alignment, free of resistance, free of shame, free of guilt, free of like any shoulds at all, right? Because our bodies are so unique. Like it's very hard to say like this experience should look like anyone else's. It's so personal and it's very sacred, right? Mm-hmm. So this work does require the lens of and like the container of devotion and reverence, right? Because I think a lot of people, especially our society, like sex is kind of this you know, it's kind of like a hit of just like in and out and we're done and that was great and okay, like there's not a whole lot of deep,
So many
intimate
puns right there. Oh my goodness.
I know, right? There's like every time you dive into this conversation, you realize just how ingrained it is. And I think that's such a beautiful way to put it, Lindsay, of just, this is where we remember how free and how aligned and, you know, how expansive we actually can be when we really return to that center and to that core. Yeah.
Yeah. And from a manifesting standpoint, like the way I'm seeing it is we all think that we want to manifest certain outcomes in order to produce certain pleasure in your life and in your body. So why not just bypass all that and go straight to your body and start to integrate the feelings now, today, without having to have the stuff or the thing or the outcome or the partner or the money, because then you can have what you really want and also as a byproduct manifest what you also wanted in the first place, which it won't be as much of a need anymore.
Exactly, right? Like in manifestation, it's be, do, have. And the being part feels really difficult because so many people are thinking their way towards their life, you know, their desired life, their manifestation. But when they're not dropping it into the heart, and especially like as women, dropping it into the lower belly, the womb, you know, dropping it into kind of our pleasure centers where we feel our way through the world, you know, it's just kind of this energy and time collapsing. So we end up bypassing like all of our excuses and doubts and fears, and it gets us right into the energetic vibrational you know, radiance that we can manifest from very efficiently, actually.
I love that. So what's like the number one mindset that someone has to adopt going into this type of work or this type of devotion?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say you know, the permission slip that nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong. I think that a lot of women assume that their body is wrong or bad or gross or dirty or, you know, there's so many self-imposed and societally imposed expectations. So doing this work, I think we have to put down what it should look like, what it has to look like, what anything else thinks it should look like, right? And really make it a personal journey. You know, because it's so intimate that it really is about you being kind of an explorer, being an observer, and not going in to get something, which is very much aligned with manifestation, right? Like when you're in it to get something and get a result and like, you know, hop straight to the end, you're kind of bypassing all of the contrasts and all of the humanness and all of the golden nuggets that you can find along the way. And some of those golden nuggets are disguised as shame or fear, right? These bigger things, when you end up expanding them from the inside out and addressing them and healing them, they end up being like the most valuable experiences, right? Especially along like your sexual awakening journey or your journey of just like re-embracing and reigniting your femininity and your feminine energy. That is the co-creative energy. That is the creative essence that we all have, no matter what gender, right? And that's something that I think to move into with just patience and letting go of all of the expectations. Nothing is wrong. You're not bad. You're not gross. It's also perfect. You know, your pleasure is like your biggest teacher, right? And lack thereof is also a good teacher. So
Biggest teacher and biggest tool.
yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think like just in opening up this conversation, if any of the listeners feel like pleasure has been really hard for them, or there's been sexual trauma in the past, or they feel like all other women in the world understand this and they're left out, like that's so normal. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just want everyone who's listening to not ever feel like they're missing out, you know, in this kind of way, because pleasure isn't just in the bedroom. Pleasure starts, like I teach this in Om, and it's really starts with something as simple as meditation, or something as simple as like really cherishing sensations day by day. So sensations being like, wow, the sun on my skin, can I just immerse myself in this one moment and be so present and grateful that I'm alive and I'm breathing and like light is beaming down and there are trees sprouting and blooming and flowers, right? Like as small as that is, and maybe as cheesy as that sounds, when we can tap into the small examples of what pleasure feels like, our body starts to feel more of it, right? It's almost like, when you're looking for something, you're going to find it. And a lot of people are looking for like struggle, and a lot of people are looking for lack, because that's just been their normal or their habitual patterns. So when you start to look for tiny little examples of pleasure, your neurology and your body end up being more tuned to what that is, and you keep finding more proof of that.
I just want to say the sun will get you whether you want it to or not. If I'm like, because when you're sad, you're like, oh, go out in the sun. Ugh, put the sun on my face. Ugh. But I'm telling you, you do it anyway. Like my son woke up and he was just in a very funky mood. So I was like, okay, get your shoes on. We're going outside. Stand right here and let the sun just be on your face and count to 10. Just do it for 10 seconds. And he goes, oh, I'm so hot. It's so hot. And I'm like, just feel it. Just feel the sun. And then by the time he counted to 10 and walked away, I was like, how do you feel? He's like, I feel better. And I was like, yes, you do. That's right. And it's just, it's like magic. I love that you said the sun, because it is one of the quickest and most effective ways to just snap you. If it doesn't snap you completely, it will at least get you like 5 steps forward to feeling better, just like that, because it's a connection that we have. It's an ancient connection that humans have with the sun. And I think that we remember it a little bit every time we go out there.
You're absolutely right.
I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, what reminds you of your vitality? What reminds you of your radiance? What reminds you of like your warmth and your ability to create life and birth life, right? Like anyone can be an artist. Anyone can create something new. Anyone can write, a beautiful poem if they really wanted to. Like that same energy is there's nothing different about like being an artist or being a creator or being a scientist. Like you're all using life force energy to create and evolve. And it's the same kind of thing when you channel that in your body and you start to connect to, what does orgasmic energy feel like for me daily? Whether I'm like self-pleasuring or making love or standing out in the sun, orgasmic energy is always coursing through us. It's just because we are alive and we're breathing. So when you're aware of it, you can start to gather it, channel it, and direct it to what you want.
So let's talk about some more examples of what it can look like to cultivate more pleasure, like on a daily basis. What are some of your personal favorite ways, or even ways that you teach your clients when they're new to this practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're wired for pleasure and we're wired for connection. And I think like as life happens, there are a lot of instances where we're taught to like shut down that sensitivity, being too emotional or too sensitive, like all of these too muchness kind of scenarios, right? So in my work, I start to give women an open that, well, I don't give them permission, but like we hold space for them to realize that they can give themselves permission to feel pleasure again. And that can start with something as simple as meditation and breath work in the mornings, or whenever, not in the mornings, but like that's one of my favorite times to do it. Get out of bed, do my morning ritual, sit down on my mat, do some yoga, breathe, like just how can I start to tap into life moving through me and like life actually being an expression through me. So in the mornings and I'm on my mat, I'm turning on some beautiful music, and I know that this is also a privileged perspective. Not everyone has the time to really like luxuriate in the mornings on their yoga mat. I'm very aware of that. But if you do,
I'm like so jealous of you right now.
There's tiny little micro moments that you can do the same thing. So if you're a mom, if you have like a really busy life, just, hold your tea and just like tap into the life that you're creating, the life that you're creating, the warmth, the smell, the texture of life, like the beauty or the vibrance of colors around you, but for 5 minutes, you can do this breath work. So if you really slow down and you just plant yourself onto the earth or in the grass or on your yoga mat or in your bathroom, shut the door, lock the door, like whatever you have to do, right? Breathe into your lower belly and start to bring awareness to kind of your yoni area, right? Yoni is the term or the phrase for a very like sacred acknowledgement of the vagina, the womb, the female reproductive system, right? So when you're just bringing energy there, what you focus on grows, right? And where your focus and attention goes, energy starts to awaken. It's almost like you're bringing consciousness from the mind. Like, what would consciousness feel like? And what could you experience consciousness like if it were down in your belly, if it were in your womb, if it were in your pelvis? Like, I know how ridiculous that might sound to some people, but
Not
like,
to us.
not to you guys, totally. Like, when you bring consciousness down into your body, you start to move differently. You start to speak differently, you know? So if you can slow down your breath and just like drop everything, like connect to gravity, get down, roll your hips around, right? Spiral it around, just like however you can start to wake up a zone that might be kind of numb or asleep, or just like you haven't paid attention to it in a little while, like whatever the reasons may be. When you just breathe into an area and you focus on lighting that area up, envisioning like light, or maybe your cells are vibrating faster, or you're asking your body, like, what if I could feel pleasure through my breath in this area of my body right now? Just like inviting that without saying, I need to feel this. The invitation opens everything up, right? So in that space, like if you're anchored, grounded, breathe there for 5 minutes. And you can also incorporate kegels, right? I feel like most women know what kegels are, but it's like the contraction of your pelvic floor and the expansion of your pelvic floor. And when you are actually like inhaling to open your pelvic floor and exhaling to contract it, you start to wake up that area even more. And it ends up being quite activating, like when you really set the time and space to do that. So meditation, inhaling, exhaling, playing with just like, what would this body feel like if it were turned on right now? What kind of pleasure can I invite into my breath right now? You just opening up different kinds of questions to help your subconscious mind actively seek out proof of where the question is true, right? So when you're doing like a lot of subconscious work, your mind is going to focus on like looking for an answer to a question that you ask yourself. And so it ends up creating really, new neural pathways, and it's really exciting. So that's a really wonderful practice. Just breathing, getting on your mat, 5 minutes in the morning. If you want to do it for 20 minutes and you have that time, amazing. And then you can also take this practice obviously into more of like a self-pleasure ritual. And more of like the active sexual expression of orgasmic manifestation. And when you're in that space, you can really start to connect like your heart to your sacral chakra. The heart, the womb, and the throat are actually really, really connected to one another. And so if you have the time and space and you can make this available for you, if you designate maybe a half hour of your time to self-pleasure, not just like, use a vibrator if you want, use a toy if you want, do whatever you need to do to move into the space of presence though. Like, I feel like a lot of women are like, okay, let me just get off and make this done and just get on with my day. And that's the same kind of thing. Like, we do one thing as we do everything. So think of like, if you were in a manifestation process and you wanted to translate that into a self-pleasure process, how are you navigating that? How are you aware of your need to like get to the end really fast, or to see a result really fast, or to be really like, controlling around how you get there? So it's much more like inviting you to co-create pleasure with the universe, with your body. And that might mean just like you slather yourself in coconut oil, right? And you do some meditation practice, or you just do some dancing, or you slither around on your floor, or you dance in front of your mirror, and then you just really take your time to exploring like, how does my body move towards climax? How does my body open up to pleasure without me forcing it, right? But more just like the slow blossoming and the unfolding, So yeah, it's really like an in-depth, mysterious, and exploratory, practice, because you might do this practice on Monday and it could look one way, and then you might do the same practice on Friday and your body's going to be like, no, that didn't work this time, right? Because there's always something shifting and you're going to be sensitive to those changes. So in bringing in orgasmic manifestation, some people love specific manifesting and some people don't love specific manifesting, right? Some people are like, I need to know exactly how much money and exactly what the house is going to look like and exactly what my soulmate partner is going to be. And some people are just like, you know what? I want to feel my way there. And I want to feel the essence of what that would be like for me, you know? So whether you want the specifics or the non-specifics is totally up to you. It's more just like, let me supercharge this desire with my sexual energy. Because, you know, energy in motion, it is emotion, it is extra supercharged when we're vibrationally emitting the same kind of like gratitude and just like the full love for it's happening now and it's already happened, and what's meant to be is what's meant to be, and it's already done. Right?
It's already yours.
It's already yours. Like, how would you pleasure yourself? How would you treat yourself as like the goddess, as the queen, if you knew that you already had everything within you? You know, there was nothing to tap to, there was nothing to get. So that was a lot, but there's so much to keep digging into here.
Yeah, that was perfect. Not too much at all. We're just scratching the surface here of our orgasmic manifestation, which really is just the practice of like opening up, receiving your own pleasure, giving yourself permission, getting rid of the shoulds. Like I always say, don't shit on yourself. And I love that you mentioned all the practices of dancing and movement. And explain again the meditation that you were talking about with the kegels, because I thought that was really cool. I've never heard of this before. So you said you breathe in as you open the pelvic floor, and then as you exhale, you contract. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yes. So
okay, cool.
If you inhale, you relax your pelvic floor. Yeah, you can just do this with us right now.
How many of the listeners have just did a kegel right now while we're talking about it? It's like a yawn where it's all just contagious.
Exactly. And you know, the funny thing is, like, a lot of women don't even realize that they're clenching their pelvic floor most of the day, because it holds so much power there and it holds so much potential energy. Mm-hmm. So when you actually like give yourself the opportunity to just relax and drop everything and open, it's almost like your whole energetic center chills out and just opens. It becomes more expansive instead of like holding in. Your body is meant to just, you know, be fairly relaxed a lot of the time, but we do take on so much trauma. And trauma can look like a really devastating, obvious experience, but can also manifest really subtly, just so small that you don't even realize you've experienced that your womb, your body is holding it. So I'm not a practitioner that goes through specific sexual trauma healing, but I do teach this modality knowing that it does support that, but it's not ever like a guarantee that that will actually be the thing that so there are really beautiful like practitioners who do body work in this kind of instance, but I don't want to like, you know, make people believe that is what I do. It's much more the energetic modality.
Right. You're not a sex therapist is what you're saying.
I am not a sex therapist. I'm just teaching something that I really was benefited by and that I know, like I've seen hundreds of women have gone through my orgasmic manifestation program. And the cool thing is, you guys, like it doesn't just affect your sex life and it doesn't just affect your manifestation. It really helps you create deeper relationships. It helps you to feel more connected to women. It helps you feel really just like more comfortable in your body. And when you're more comfortable in your body, your energy field is more receptive and open, right? Mm-hmm. So it ends up having just like these multi-layered and multi-dimensional byproducts and effects that most women are like, oh my gosh, so I didn't go into this program expecting everything that we did. I just kind of expected a little bit of a manifestation activation, and it ended up saving my marriage, you know, because like this woman or these women learn how to take back their power and channel it efficiently and stop like energy leaking, and they start to take back their boundaries, because that's a really necessary part of the orgasmic manifestation practice, you know. Get clear on what you want and get clear on what you're tolerating. And if you're not asking for what you want and you don't know how to communicate that, it's the same thing in your relationship, and it's the same thing with the universe. So we got to get all in there and get really clear and specific and like take back your power if you've let it kind of like leak out for years, right?
I love that. Jinx! We both love it. Surprise,
So much.
surprise. Lindsay and I are alike. Who would have thought? That's
goodness.
So I want to dive a little bit into, maybe if you could share like one or two success stories that have really stood out to you recently of clients that you've worked with or students that you've had, or it could even be yourself, like a transformation that was made. I know you just mentioned that lady who saved her marriage. That's amazing. Do you have any more examples for the audience? Because I think everyone loves a good success story because it really makes you feel like, oh, if she did it, like I can totally do it.
Yeah, definitely. So one of my past clients, we did some of this work in we haven't gone into a whole lot of this yet, but a big part of orgasmic manifestation is also like the unity and the merging of feminine and masculine and the essences of both of those, and merging them inside of you, within you, so you get to be an expression of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, where you're very aware of where you're healing the wounded feminine and the wounded masculine. And we can talk about more what those kinds of things manifest as, or like those expressions. But when you're practicing this merging of those kinds of polarities within you, you end up finding even greater alignment. So when you're in greater alignment, and this doesn't look like 50-50, 50% feminine, 50% masculine. This looks like your unique, optimal blueprint of that kind of marriage and that kind of unity. So when you are in that optimum alignment, the world starts to open up for you because you're not battling your wounds anymore, right? You're not like the angry married couple who doesn't ever, understand each other, and you're never on the same page, and you're always missing each other, and you're always communicating differently, and it feels like you may as well be living in different universes. So imagine if like you have that kind of expression of misalignment always being, emitted out. So when you find the merging and you do this practice enough, like that's just going to naturally happen, because that is like the epitome of self-love, right? Self-unity, self-love. And a client of mine who had done this before, she literally sent me a Voxer. She was like, Aislinn, my whole life just changed. I was like, okay, tell me more. Like, what does this mean? She was like, I realized that I have been denying myself of what I really want to do. And she really, she was kind of in this really wonderful specific niche in her business, but she'd been like, no, wait, I actually want to do this thing over there. I want to, I want this to be bigger than I ever thought possible. And she was kind of denying herself of allowing that, So she ended up just really recreating her whole business, deciding that she was just going to let herself move through a process of rebirth, because this stuff is kind of uncomfortable when you really are committed to alignment. Anything out of alignment will fall away.
Yeah.
And that is sort of messy, right? But it's all for the greater good, and having tools and therapists and coaches and, having all those tools to help you through that rebirth process is absolutely necessary. But she ended up just really stepping into her power in an even bigger way. And she was already very successful. So it was really cool to see her say, you know what? I just went through this whole rebirth process. My masculine and feminine have married and merged in a way that I never thought was possible. And she ended up just lighting up. You could literally see a difference in her expression, in her face, in her words, how she spoke. And it's that multi-layered expression that ends up just you almost see them burst out of this shell. They're beautiful before, but there was something there's more to you. I know there's more to you. And so when you step into that and you see that, it's the most beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful thing ever.
And that's what keeps you coming back for more. I know that feeling of this is why I got into this. This is why I do this, is to see those light bulb moments, or those I am powerful. That's addicting for me, to see that in my clients. So I love those moments. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful.
Hey there, thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to watch the extended version where you get the full podcast episode in a video format, just go to patreon.com/highvibe. The link is in the description. That's where you can become a supporter of the show, listen to all the episodes via video format, and each week you get extended versions of the show, meaning you get to see the pregame behind the scenes, and also you get an extended interview with whoever we're guesting, or if it's me and Lindsay, we usually pull cards for you guys, fun stuff like that. So go check it out. There's lots of cool goodies, including a free copy of my book, a free audio hypnosis from Lindsay. She's a hypnotherapist. And yeah, we just want to give you all the goods, all the content. So head over to patreon.com/high vibe to become a Patreon.
Or if you'd rather listen to the rest of this episode, head over to highvibinit.com where you'll see all the links to everywhere that it's getting streamed. Click your favorite one and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.